Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the DEI Dispatch. Now, AI agents are going big. There's a lot of hope and despair going together in the market because of what's happening. But today I have a very special guest. I have Anthony Isaacson, who is the founder of FXN. For those who are not in the trenches, FXN is building the swarm economy. Did I get it right, Anthony?
Yeah, that's a nice short way to say it.
Yeah, awesome. So, Anthony, let's start with your, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Anthony. I go by Burbable online. So I'm the founder of FXN. I consider myself just like the lead developer. So we got started building FXN like a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually started as like a communication protocol between actually cybersecurity researchers and ideally companies who needed threat intel data. So now we've migrated this more towards like the AI agent space, and now it's honestly going extremely well. So I'm excited to like just tell you more about like how that's been going today.
Now, I want you to take a step back. You said you started building this as a communication protocol for cybersecurity agents. Is that right? Was that also
Not
an
not
AI product?
agents,
Just professionals.
professionals. Yeah, exactly. So my
Okay.
background is cybersecurity. So back in like ancient history, like 2015, I got started as like a software engineer
Mm,
in IoT security for connected medical devices.
mm,
So that was like the heyday of not AI but machine learning. Back
mm.
when machine learning was on billboards in like the Bay Area. So yeah, long time ago, probably before the time of many people on crypto Twitter, to be honest. But the way that we were protecting like connected medical devices was basically by like learning what they do day to day, like what they communicate with, and building what we called like normal profiles. So you can imagine like an infusion pump communicates back to like the nurse's base station, and like that it does that all day. So if it suddenly starts like communicating like overseas to some like random destination, you can like figure out that like that's not what it's supposed to be doing. And our product was basically selling that like normal behavior to hospitals to protect their medical devices. So that was
Interesting.
kind of like how my career got started.
Mm,
But the reason we started, I wanted to start a company in like crypto
mm,
is because we're basically selling a product that really should be like a community contribution because we're
mm,
basically like protecting people's lives. So
mm.
that was kind of like the real like backstory behind this all.
And so when did that switch happen? Like when did you first get into crypto? What was that moment like? When did that exactly occur? And after that, how did you realize, okay, the opportunity for applying that communications protocol outside of cybersecurity lies in, creating a communications protocol for all of these AI agents?
So there's a lot there. The way I first got into crypto was actually a guy that I met in that first startup. So he did his like PhD in peer-to-peer systems. So like
Mm,
back like early Bitcoin, him and I worked together for like a year or so. And
mm.
he started a crypto startup like a year and a half ago and was just like sucking me into joining crypto. I personally was like I was happy working in like another cybersecurity startup, and he was just like dead set on like this being like the next thing. Um, so I was
And
part of like
what was that? What was
it was called Nimble Network. It was like kind of a competitor to like Hyperbolic, I would say, like GPU
mm.
sharing sort of vibe. But yeah, again, that was like probably like the first wave of like decentralized AI. I think we've now sort of like things have sort of shifted more in the agent space. But like back a year and a half ago, that was like all people were talking about was like GPUs, like IONET kind of thing.
Got it. So you worked on that first for what, a year and a half, and then pivoted to the communications protocol for AI agents, and which is what
Pretty much.
FXN is today.
Yeah,
Talk,
exactly.
talk
Well,
about
so yeah,
talk about that switch, because I know GPUs are a big market, and so that decentralized training, a lot of teams are trying to create solutions protocols around that. What made you switch? Is that not a lucrative like space to build in? Are there like specific challenges that you witness there, or the opportunity here is simply too big?
so I think that when it comes to like GPU sharing, I sort of think that market has sort of been won. So the big
Who's
players
won that market?
the big players are like IONET, Akash, Aether, and
Hmm.
probably Hyperbolic. But like I don't really think there's much more space for GPUs. I would say it's fairly crowded now, and
Hmm.
I think we sort of just got like crowded out of that market. And yeah, ultimately when it comes down to like GPU sharing, like they are sort of a commodity.
Hmm.
Well, your GPU, as long as it's like relatively nearby to me, is like basically the exact same product as another GPU nearby. So all you're competing on is price, basically. So I think like the way most of the profit is earned in a market is by going like directly to like the use case itself, not necessarily like just like the atoms that like assemble the use case.
Hmm. Got it. Okay, so that happened, and then you recognized, okay, there is an opportunity in AI agents. Talk about that exact moment. Like, is this right after the Infinity Backrooms, experiment that was happening, and Andy was published? He published the Truth Terminal, unleashed that on us on crypto, right? And so Goat happened, and then we are seeing what happened. Like, was it around then that you recognized, okay, suddenly so many agents are propping up, and we need this communication layer between them?
No, so actually, what got me excited about it was Shaw releasing Eliza. It wasn't truth terminals.
Mm.
Because the thing about truth terminals is that it's very like behind the scenes, like what's actually going on, and
Yeah,
like
but
without
have
being
you
able to
checked?
like
Have you checked
explain
out
it.
that conversation between those AI? It's pretty
I
cool.
have, I have, I spent a bit of time back there, and like it was just insane. Like the conversations they're having are just insane. But it's
Yeah.
hard to like get excited about it without being able to see the code. I feel
Mm,
like as a dev, I like to be able to see how it's happening. So
mm.
when I saw the Eliza code originally, like kind of early November, that was when I was like, oh man, this is something that I could actually get involved in. So that was what I got excited with.
Hmm. Okay, let's talk about that. Like, what made you when you were looking at Eliza? What got you the most excited about what Shaw was building? Because I had a great opportunity of speaking with Shaw. I think we spoke for over an hour and a half, trying to explore the entire breadth. But from your perspective, because you're so technical and from the software side, what caught your attention with what Shaw was trying to build?
I mean, there was like a huge amount of excitement just
Hmm.
like generally like in like mid-November. I don't know if you remember like that time. I just kind of
Hmm.
realized that like this was like a massive opportunity. And like I don't think people quite got it yet at the time, like exactly what it was. People were like, oh, this is just like an AI meme coin of like an anime chick. And I was like, no, no, no. I was going around DevCon in Bangkok, and I was telling people like this is not just like a coin. Like this open source repository is like insanely good.
Damn, I wish I met you in Bangkok, man. I would have invested much earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Anywho, okay. So
so
you
yeah,
saw
I
you
was
saw the opportunity early. You saw that it's not just a meme coin. They're building something more fundamental. Talk about
yeah.
it. What was your first impressions of what he was building, and why do you think it's an important thing what he's working on?
I think the cool part about it is just how extensible it is. Like
Hmm.
it is fully open source, and like the plugins that you can
Hmm.
build to just like attach anything that you want to it
Hmm.
make it really interesting. I think you've
Hmm.
kind of seen the ecosystem fork out, and now there's like a crap load of plugins.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I first heard about it, I obviously saw the instant like potential to connect it to the protocol that we had been building since like 8 months before it got launched. So there's a message from me in their Discord from like mid-November being like, "Hey, if I made a communication protocol for this, would anyone use it?" And there was a couple of guys who were like, "Yeah, let's do that." So that's basically how I got started like integrating all of this stuff into Eliza, and why we decided to launch FXN, because we were
Hmm.
originally called Oz, which was more of like the human-centered communication protocol, and
Hmm.
the AI agent's origin story started there.
Okay. Now, I want you to talk about the problem in itself. Like, okay, so many agents are being created through a variety of different frameworks, not just Eliza. Now, there are many competitors out there in the market. Plus, to be really honest, you don't even need a framework, right?
You
You can
know,
just build an agent if you want to. So,
yeah,
which means now I start building all of these different agents. Where do you see is the need for this communication layer between them?
yeah. Basically, like a lot of the frameworks right now are trying to like fit a lot of functionality into one agent. It's like you're like a handyman, and you have like a toolbox full of like every tool. I think it's a lot more efficient to like make the handyman like a plumber or an electrician and give them all the specialized tools they need for like one task, and then let them like share their skills among those who like need like electrical work or plumbing work. So that's kind of like the way we're thinking about this is like let's build some kind of a system that lets agents like specialize and get really good at like one thing, and then easily like share that skill among those who like need it, but at a scale that makes sense for like the consumers. So right now, like let's just go back to like the cybersecurity example. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
companies that offer like cybersecurity data out there, but it's at a scale that is intended for like typically businesses. So it's not even for individuals. It's actually for businesses. So it's like thousands of dollars a month potentially. So if you're an agent that needs like a security data set, you're not going to spend $1,000 for a month of the service. You need it like atomically, like for like on like an operation by operation basis. So I think the opportunity for like an agent marketplace is in like creating like the right size service for agents instead of the right size service for like a human enterprise.
I just think that the fundamental of the building block of an AI starts with the right set of data, right? And so if you don't have access to quality data sets, there is a limit to what those agents would in theory be capable of. Of course, now we're looking at synthetic data that, okay, we have reached the limits of what's available on the internet. And so let's create one. There are also challenges around, although we have a ton of proprietary data as well, but they are locked behind, proprietary systems, and there must be something that would open them up for sharing. Do you think without access to, high quality data, just by simply communicating, these agents would learn and improve? Like what sort of outcomes are you seeing that will be presented to us as a result of this?
I'm referring to data. I'm actually not referring to like training data. I'm more referring to like within an existing workflow that an agent may be taking, it might need like it might need to make like one call to like check it. Actually, I'll just give you like a workflow that I'm working on from the Action Engine right now.
Yeah.
So there's like a project manager agent that has like a team, and the team has like, let's just say it's like 6 members. The first member extracts data from like Telegram. The second one extracts data from like Twitter, and each one kind of like specializes in like getting like a particular kind of like crypto alpha. And then there's like another agent that has access to like a large set of like token data, and it can basically, for the given topics discussed within the alpha groups, it can tell you like which of the tokens are like legitimate and likely not scams. So each of those like specialized functions has like, there's a specialized data set behind it, and it's like brought in to like the team of agents. Like that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So you may need like a large like data set to like train those like individuals to like recognize the patterns. But then when it comes to like just inferencing on it, you more need like access to like the thing that has already been trained.
Got it. Okay, I get it now. So let's say if you want to build taking the example of AI16Z DAO itself, right? The initial thought process was building this uh, investment fund which will invest in other agents or opportunities. And so now you can have specific agents who are trained on different data sets and who bring unique capabilities, and they can then work together to figure out what the right investment opportunities might be. That is
Yeah,
one example. Is that correct? Okay.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there is something that you mentioned, that it's a super swarm. Like you have this interesting like visual where you show agent frameworks, on one side, and then you show agent frameworks with no swarm support, where you give examples of Eliza and virtuals, and then with FXN all of this comes together. Can you explain what this is, and why is this relevant, this visualization? How do you make sense of this?
Yeah. So I think a lot of folks are trying to like focus within their own ecosystem. Like I know like virtuals, they're working to like build a pretty robust like internal virtual to virtual
Yeah, their
communication.
vision is to build the quote unquote society of AI agents. So
Exactly.
so the challenge is, like, agents who are built there cannot engage with agents who are equipped on the other side with another framework or maybe built independently.
Yeah, it might not even be like that they can't, but it's like they won't be prioritized as much. So like the depth of communication that's possible may be like challenging, so to speak. So our goal is basically to make it so that these agents, no matter where they come from, no matter where their wallet is, they can all communicate with one another. That's pretty fundamentally all there is to it.
Got
We don't
it.
want to like discriminate against any one ecosystem. Like we got started building on Eliza, and we've built a lot of plugins and have a lot of support for them. But ultimately, like we work with any chain, any framework.
Got it. I'm also interested to understand, like, just from a technical perspective, how does this communication happen? Like, is this, and why do you need a, distributed ledger or a blockchain to enable this communication? I'm assuming you don't, right?
You don't. You could use a database, right? Of course.
Yeah.
A blockchain is just like a type of data structure, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way that we do it is we have a contract on Solana that basically the data provider agents reach out to, and they say like, who has subscribed to my feed. They get the endpoints that have subscribed to them. So they're typically like IP addresses or domains, and then they like offer their service to those endpoints. So whether they establish like a WebSocket or they just like poll
Got it.
that destination.
So the primary role here is to use this ledger to figure out, who is asking for that service and how do you do the incentivization, like basically use that for financializing the whole system. Is this correct?
Yeah, well, what I was just talking about was the connectivity side. But yeah, in order to like do the subscription and get your like IP address into that list that I was talking about, you have to pay the data provider via FXN.
Got it. Okay. Another thing that I mean, I've read this, which is around how do you trust the outcomes that are being generated through these agents? Like there could be the same set of agents who work on the exact same data, right? And is there a way that the system stack ranks them through some kind of a reputation, framework? So, other agents who are looking for such services can figure out, okay, these are probably the top five best places to go when you're looking for, let's say, investment insights or, best on-chain insights or whale wallet activity, those kind of things. Like, how does FXN figure this out? Like, where should it communicate to?
Yeah,
Or is
so
it a human on the other side thinking, okay, here is a list and go talk to these 10 agents?
no, so reputation is handled like within the subscription system. So if I subscribe to your data, let's say I subscribe to you for one day and you don't perform your job very well, I report back like the quality of your data at the end of the subscription. And that reputation is like stored on the blockchain. So for the next person that may want to access your data, they can say like your data wasn't very good. So this like reputation is like baked into the subscription process basically. And it's like made public at the end of the process. So the thought is that the agents they're not like centralized services that they're like hugely like horizontally scalable. So the idea is you may provide an agent that can offer a service to like 50 different other agents, for example. And like those like the damage is fairly like minimal if someone is to like offer bad data. The costs are fairly low. The scope is fairly low. So basically reputation can be built up like block by block instead of like potentially harming like a large set of people basically.
I've seen a lot of these things, like because FXN is predominantly an infrastructure. I'm also curious to understand what was the thought process when you decided to launch a token? Was this to ride the wave, or is there some more fundamental utility that you're thinking that the token will play in this infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean the token is used for like denominating the subscription. So it's basically just like the internal currency of what we're doing.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty fundamentally all it does.
Got it. Okay. Let's talk about some use cases. So we are looking at you know, some big areas that are emerging is DeFi, agentifying the whole DeFi workflows. Trading agents is something that I see are really hot today. You have a bunch of these social agents. Walk me through like the 4 or 5 big areas where you see, especially on chain from a crypto perspective, would you see FXN play a big role in terms of end use cases? What can be triggered and what will improve? What will be the outcomes?
Sure. So I think given like the key use case that I'm seeing is like taking these like basically like powerful like business focused like data sets and like bringing them at the right scale to agents. I think use cases that are typically reserved for like corporate customers can basically be brought to a much smaller scale. So right now
Give
we're
me some
integrating.
examples.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to do. So the one we're trying to do right now is we're integrating with like basically like the full like Twitter API, not via Twitter, but via like another like provider of like Twitter data to basically make it so agents can access like the full Twitter data set. So that's where like that like alpha hunting use case was coming from. We are definitely going to focus on like crypto first use cases because as like a crypto company, you kind of need to do that. But we don't want to focus on like the traditional like LPing kind of use cases. We want to focus more on things that are a little bit more like research oriented. So that's where it comes down to like sourcing the right data, getting the right analysis in place, and like
Yeah.
orchestrating like a multi-agent system.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring this up because I was going through a podcast by Y Combinator when they were discussing how vertical AI SaaS is a $300 billion opportunity. Clearly, side the rabbit hole, folks see functions being, you know, um, automated or replaced by agents or improved through agents. And I see this play a like big role there as well. So do you see like foresee this kind of going beyond, where you exist right now in this space, and then eventually be adopted in more like mainstream agentic use cases, which is where we'll see the biggest rise, in terms of adoption or growth? Because how many crypto users exist in the world? Just on chain, maybe like 100,000 if I'm being really lenient. The larger, broader use case of AI is outside, where folks are using ChatGPT today in their workflows at workplaces. That's where I see like agents will play the role of augmenting their workflows, which is where communication layer also plays a big role. Talk a bit about that opportunity, like beyond crypto.
Yeah, I definitely don't think the like crypto Twitter is pretty small, you know? Yeah, so I've been talking to some Web2 companies about how we
Yeah.
can use what we're building to like orchestrate their workflows. And the
Mm.
interesting thing about like AI is that like it is generic, you know? You can apply it to any use
Correct.
case.
Yeah.
I was talking to a telecom company in Canada about how I could
Mm.
potentially like automate like their workflows. The use case was like this. So they do two-way radio communication.
Mm.
So if when a customer buys like a radio, they have to register it in like three different separate systems. And what they wanted to do was basically integrate like an API from one was Twilio, another one was like their internal system, and another one was like the radio provider itself. So basically the radio comes in, you have to like call these three different like APIs. And you also have to like make some like comments about like what the customer is. So they were trying to automate this system. And with like the action engine, you can actually integrate like freely HTTP like APIs. So I was working with them to like potentially automate like this use case. So
Mm.
the idea of like bringing this stuff to other audiences is absolutely like something we're thinking about all the time. It's just a matter of like getting interest from them is difficult. What I've seen other crypto companies do is actually like rebrand or not rebrand, but almost like have like two different faces to their company.
Got it.
It's the same business fundamentally, but then you have like FXN maybe is like the crypto focused arm, and then there's like another like arm
Mm.
where you deliver like the same service, but like without the fact that there's a token.
They think the fact that you're operating in crypto, you're not serious.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Like I think some people may view like the idea of a coin in a bad way, especially what recently happened with like our president.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I want to move and talk a little more about the market itself. Like, of course, in December, November, a lot of excitement was there. And so, capital, of course, in crypto is all about narratives. If you're observing for the last 1.5 years, you'll see money kind of flowing from one thing to another. And so, we saw a huge rise in almost everything that had quote unquote an AI thingy in it. And now we're seeing, a whole different phase of the market. How do you react to this? Does this bother you in any way? Does this have any role to play in your motivation to continue working on this project? Or, you know, just general thoughts on, will this lead to a decline in attention that these agents, with respect to what their true capabilities are? Because folks are only playing PvP, right? They just want to make money very quickly. But we are seeing like fundamental utility driven value being created. And so that changes how people think about the value of the underlying tokens as well. Like until AI 16Z was a meme, they were treating it like a meme. And so we saw that journey. And so now with this rebrand to Eliza OS and the whole focus on building this infra, there's going to be all of these plugins. We're working on V2. V2 will have so many things. You will be able to create all of this stuff. This is like real technology software stuff that you're working on. So the game changes. How do you evaluate the market? What role do you think it will play in the next like 6 to 12 months in your own the development of FX and crypto side in your life cycle, and also the larger like AI agent market as a whole?
Yeah, I find that when it comes to crypto, like having a live token, this is the first token I've ever launched, and it's like an
Hmm.
extremely emotional thing, right? So
Yeah.
the stance I've tried to take is that like I don't pay attention when it goes up, so I don't have to pay attention like when it goes down, and I can just like focus on like doing my work. So that's kind of the same thing that I have now. Like we have a plan of like where we want to take this thing to like complete the
Hmm.
vision. and like we're going to complete the vision, and like we don't really care about like the pricing part.
That's a very interesting answer. A very pragmatic. I like that.
Well, no, honestly, I feel like you have to, because otherwise, like you get like these huge swings where it's like things just like feel wrong.
Mm.
The safest thing is just to not pay attention.
Interesting. Okay, I want to move to the last section of this podcast and spend a little time to ask you what would be your advice. What would your advice be to new devs who are looking at this quote unquote hot market and thinking, okay, there's something that we could do with it. Of course, a lot of them are short term as well, like extractive in value, but some of them are thinking, okay, this is something really cool that those who have a builder mentality and want to start building stuff, what should be their starting point and how do they engage with FXN? How can you help them?
Honestly, I don't think the market is as hot as it was before.
Mm,
Back like mid-November, I had this like feeling that like the time was like absolutely now. And I was
mm,
working like 16, 18 hours a day to like build what we build now.
mm,
Now I don't get that same feeling. So I think things
mm,
have like slowed down a lot. And like what the next thing is going to be is like unclear.
mm,
So my personal feeling is that like during low times in the market, what you want to do is build something that is like small, concrete, and generically applicable, so that when
mm,
like the hot thing does come out, you can easily like fit it to whatever that thing is. So
mm,
what we did with like our communication protocol is like we built a generic communication protocol. So we targeted like it could fit into like any industry, any vertical, and like easily align with it. And like that's what I think the right way to do it is. And in crypto, the important thing to do is like pick a lane and do just one thing, because if you don't, no one wants to partner with you. And like the
mm,
main value of working in this industry is like composability between products. So if
mm,
you build something and you try to do everything, no one will want to work with you. You're a really
mm.
bad partner if you try to do it all. So that's my personal strategy. I think it's like working out okay. We have quite a few partners, quite a few partnerships left to announce coming up, and yeah, I just think that's just sort of how it works. When you want to spread the word about what you're doing, other founders, other partners are like the best way to do it.
And are there some resources like if somebody wants to who's never looked at AI before but he has experience coding and building products and he's thinking, okay, this agentification of workflows might be interesting in how users use my product today, and so I should start looking at it. What are some good go-to resources where he could start learning about it? And are there any communities out there that he can join and discuss with other folks as well, who are in the trenches?
In the trenches. Actually, one of the main like business resources I use is actually Y Combinator. So I was listening to
Mm,
one of their podcasts before before this call. So when it comes to the trenches, what I do as a dev is I just like get into the code bases of things that are working. So looking like deep in the Eliza code base, looking deep in the LangChain code base, and just like see what people are doing. One like anecdote is people were talking about how like DeepSeek like doesn't work because it like doesn't do like function calling, but like
yeah.
a lot of different frameworks like don't even use function calling. Like we use like we use like parsing from the results. So like function calling doesn't help you at all. So there's certain examples like that. It's like you may read that kind of thing and be like, this tool doesn't work because you don't know how like the code works. But like
Uh,
if you just read the code, you would see that it's like irrelevant.
Okay, interesting. Just before we go, there is this narrative going on around centralized versus decentralized, or centralized control, even from a governance perspective, how AI is being developed today versus the vision of how OpenAI was initially founded by. What are your thoughts on the evolution of AI? Where are the real issues? Like, what's the problem with big companies governing, creating, managing, and and being those distribution points for AI? Where are the risks?
I was thinking about this recently. The trouble with like corporate AI is that it's trained on like public data sets, right? So like things
Mm,
that are like highly like curated. So if you look at
mm,
like the content like on YouTube that it may have been trained on, like those are not just like candid conversations between people. Those are like structured content. Same with like books, same with like the internet that's full of articles. If you really want like an AI to help you personally, like I
mm,
think it has to get a lot more personal in terms of the content that it can access. And you really don't want to be sending like your like inner monologue off to like OpenAI, you know? So NVIDIA recently released something that's like an at-home like GPU where you can like run your own AI like in your own home. And I really think that's where we have to be getting to with this kind of thing, where it's like you have your own like personal model that's running based on your own personal data that never leaves your house. So like I don't know if you use like a data diode to prevent it from like ever going out, but it's like there's
Mm.
information that like it doesn't matter if it's like necessarily bad, but like you just don't want other people to know it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I really think we have to get to the point where we all have like our own thing that is like verifiably ours and can't be accessed by like these big corporations.
But okay, there's the other side of the table where true AI, personalized AI, will work best when it knows everything about me. Like it's there when I'm doing my calls, it's there when I'm out there running, so it can collect my healthcare data, what's happening with my heart rate or my speed of walking or whatever. It's on, it's listening to me 24/7, 365. So one part of me is I will have a much more trained, efficient personal assistant if it's connected all the time. The other side is the risk of exposing my personal life, which is already out there so much because we're connected. Just a few hours before, Anthony, I was thinking I spend more time with my laptop than my wife. That struck to me like, I mean, like what the fuck? Fresh. So, what are your thoughts about encroachment to your personal life? Anyway, we are trying to figure out how do you unwind, man, right? How do you do that digital detox? I mean, one of my heroes, Cal Newport, he speaks about it at length, right? Deep work and stay away from the machines and delete all your social media profiles. So that's one side of the table. How do you like do that? But on the other side, we want AI to do our work, basically replaces that. I would want to get to a stage where AI does everything I do because I know a lot of the things that I do are completely doesn't require much thought, right? They are structured, systematized things that I just go in and manage every day. So I can be free to do creative stuff, whatever it might be, right? Just travel or write a book or read something, just chill out. How do you see this interplay between privacy, the need for, this automation, this intelligence in our life, and then the interplay between, okay, now it's just, there is no stopping. Like it's just all over your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all plugged into this thing because we're ultimately trying to get some economic value out of it, right? So like whether it's like improving your personal brand by just like posting or like scrolling these social channels so that we're like in the loop, or we're like actually actively producing content for it. Like ultimately our goal is to like get some kind of monetary value. So when it comes to
Mm.
like unplugging, we're obviously not contributing anything. So like if we need money, we're not getting that money, right? So yeah, like all of those things are
Mm.
important, but like you're not doing that when you're not plugged in, unfortunately.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean that's the whole thing that I was talking about with like making the AI like yours and like verifiably not accessed by other people though, is that like you have it running yourself. So it can do the things that you do without you necessarily needing to like expose how to other people. I think that's kind of the goal.
But can I do that kind of a private engagement without ever being connected to the internet?
Yeah, like outbound only. That's what I mean. So what a data diode is it only allows data to flow in one direction. So what you could
Okay.
do is like train this thing. So you have like maybe it's like quite a powerful GPU running at home that's trained on all your data and it knows like your workflows and it only ever
Hmm.
reaches out. So no one else can ever like read your stuff except for what you're sending out intentionally.
That's amazing, Anthony. On that note, I'd like to bring this podcast to a close. I think it was a very interesting conversation, and I wish you all the best with FXN and want to see how this project evolves over the next, 6 to 12 months and over time as well. All the best to you.
Cool. Sounds good.